ladies and gentlemen, and in this section of the course we're going to be reworking our outline image to adding colors and effects to make it look like a completed design. The first thing we want to do before we get into that is save it as a new file so that we're working with a file under a new name. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Penguin file from 7C, and I have it right here. And then what I want to do is go to File and say Save As. And what this will let me do is make a new file that I can call C8, illustration process, and 11. And I just go ahead and click Save. So I have just changed the number really. I still have my name in it so I can get back to it easily. I click OK on the pop-up. And now I have a new file up at the top that says C8. And what this means is that if I make mistakes or do things I don't like in my project, I can go back to it as I need to. Once you have your second copy of your file saved, you're ready to move on to the next video, where we're going to start actually adjusting the lines and coloring in the image. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and in this video we're going to start adjusting the strokes and fills of our images, and this is really where we're going to add colors and adjust the outlines of our entire image. So we're going to start off by customizing all of our lines at once, and we can go back and do them layer by layer if we want to. But then afterwards we're going to fill each shape one at a time, going layer by layer, starting at the bottom and working way up. So go ahead and get your C8 file open, so the one we saved in the last video. And what we're going to do is start off by unlocking every layer. And then I'm going to zoom out just a little bit by pressing Control minus. I'll use the black arrow to select everything at once. And now what I can do is I can adjust some of the different features. So I want to adjust first the stroke, which is the outline of the colors. So you could say I want everything to be outlined in red or in black, and I want mine to be like a really dark blue. So now if I do that, if you notice all my outlines, whoops, let's try that again. So I press Control, zoom back out, highlight everything, double click, and I want a little bit brighter blue so it's easier to see. And for some reason that's not working for me right now, so I'm going to try it one more time going over here, then going over to my colors palette, which is right here, and seeing if I can change the color that way. So now if I go, I got some different colors going. So for some reason double clicking here didn't work. I had to go to my colors palette after I had selected everything using the black selection arrow. So now if we zoom in, I still want to be focusing on the stroke, which is that outline of each shape. And I want to pick like, what do I want my stroke, my brush style to be? Do I want it to be hand-drawn looking? So do I want it to look more like a sketch? Do I want it to look more like a marker? What do I want? And I can do it different ones for each layer or even for each different piece. And you can go ahead and take care of that. When you're unlocking all the layers though, and I just realized I did this, it's a good idea to go ahead and keep the template image locked. And we'll turn it off actually, so we're not even using it, so that we can work with that. So we have our stroke selected. I'm going to go with the hand-drawn brush, and then I like it about that thickness. So I like how it has a little bit of a hand-drawn feel. And now I can start filling in my layers. So I'm going to go ahead and lock them all up. So if I just click the locks on each one, I'm going to leave the very bottom one open except for the template. So I'm going to ignore the template for the rest of this project. If I click this little circle, it'll highlight it for me. Or I can use the black arrow to click and drag to select it. And now I want to pick my background color. And this looks like it's a nighttime picture. So I want to go ahead and fill my background color with like a dark gray. Maybe a black even. Let's try a black because I'm not liking the way the gray looks. So now I have my black selected, but I also want the snow. So now that's just the background. I'm going to move up by changing my background color, and this is a little bit harder to see. So maybe I'm going to do just like a light gray. So if we highlight it first, because it doesn't change unless you highlight it. And you just got to make these decisions on your own on what colors you want it to be, however you want to do it. And you can always go back and change it later just by going back to the layer. So I'm going to lock the background color. I'm going to go up to the snowbank layer, unlock it, click the circle to highlight it. Now I know this is going to be snow, so I'm going to make the snow white. And now it fills in with white. And I can just keep working through my images in that style. So I'm going to go layer by layer. So you're welcome to be working through this now if you want to. So now the stars, if I click on that, I can make all my stars, let's go for like a nice yellow color. And it's filling in here because this is the one on top. If this was on top, when I click on the colors, it would change the outline. So see how those stars became pink? So you want to double click on the one you want to change, and then you can use the color palette to find the colors you want. You can even use some of these like more pre-designed colors, but we'll go into other ways to make your own gradient effects in a later video. So just keep working your way up the layers. So I got my stars, now I go to my moon, click to highlight it, and you can even see both paths, but we want to fill them with, let's make my moon white. And now I'm going to just keep working up the layers, one at a time, get my snowflakes. We can make these ones white as well. And now we're up to the penguin. So the feet of my penguin, I'm going to make those yellow. And remember, this is where we were drawing in on top of each other. So see how we got like the white background? Ideally, when I make these yellow, they will cover up everything that's behind it. And now the yellow even goes inside the body. So when I get up to the body later on, that should be covering that up too. So let's get the wing first. To make my wing, I'm going to make this penguin pink penguin. So I forgot to highlight my wing, so I can either use that circle or this black selection tool. And then let's make my penguin pink. And now I'll go to the body as well, and that should even it up a little bit. So let's go lock this up, go to the body, highlight him with that circle, click the pink button, I have my pink penguin. I'm going to keep going up my list of layers to start making him a little bit more beautiful. So his stomach, let's make, using my color palette, black. Let's make him yellow. So he's coming out a little bit odd looking, but some pink and yellow going on. And now let's get the beak and fill that color. I'm going to do a yellow on that one too. Forgot to select it, so I'm going to use the black arrow since my layers are already closed. And then I like his eyes. I think it'd be nice to have like a white on the eyes. So I select my eyes. I gotta unlock them first, select them, and then I fill it with white. And now I have it filled in. For the details layer, you're not gonna fill that in because you'll get really weird effects if you try to fill in your details. So say I fill it in, notice how the hair gets kind of a background shading, the eyes get filled in, the armpit gets a little yellow line. So we don't really want that. We could do it one by one if you wanna get some of those effects, but I recommend just leaving it clear. So let's highlight my details again, and we'll make them clear. So we've colored in everything on our image. In the next video, we'll show how we can use the gradient tool to get some better effects with what we're doing. So go ahead, save this up at this point. So go File, Save, and you're ready to go on to the next video. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, in this video we're going to use the gradient mesh tool to create lighting effects inside of our image. So go ahead and open up your image in Illustrator that you've been working with. Let's get the layers palette back up. And we're just going to review how to use the gradient mesh tool by starting with the background color. So because I have like a night sky, I want to change my background color to be kind of starting out darker up here and then getting lighter as the glow from the moon comes down. So you want to think first, where's your light source? And this, my light source, is the stars, because the light would be coming from up there. So what I want to do is I want to highlight my background layer. And then this one, you don't want to keep the stroke, so you don't have to copy it in the beginning. But normally, if you were doing like the stars or something, you'd want to copy them first by pressing Control-C or Edit Copy, so that you can have an extra copy, because when we use this tool, the blue outline is going to go away. And it would look weird if everything else had an outline except for the stars, or everything except for the snowflakes. So I'm going to go ahead and make that effect first on the background layer, and then I'll do it again on the stars so you can see what it looks like. So first I'm going to recolor my background to be black. So it's unlocked, it's selected, I put black, so now it's a lot darker. Then once I have my background color selected, it's got to be one of the solid colors, not one of these patterns. I can go to the gradient mesh tool, and I can pick to change the color a little bit. So see how you get these lines once I click? And I can say I want it to go to a lighter grayish color. So I get this kind of glowing effect now at the bottom. If I keep clicking, it can kind of resource it. And you just kind of play around with it is usually my approach to see how can you get the effect that you want. So now I have like a little glow. Once I lock this layer up, all those lines go away, and now he's glowing a little bit. So now it looks like a night sky. It looks a lot more, looks a lot better than it did before when it was just this gray area. So let's go back to what I had. And then I'm going to show you one more time how I did that using the stars. But for the stars, I'm going to do them one at a time. And what I'm going to start off by doing is unlocking the layer, using the black selection tool to grab my star. So it's highlighted now. The first thing I want to do is copy that image. So I got to go Edit, Copy, or press Control C. Because what's going to happen is once I use this, that pink outline is going to go away. So let's say I want my star to go from yellow to white. And we'll start off with white, and then we'll go yellow toward the bottom. So I want to, it's already yellow, so I'm just going to grab my gradient mesh tool and click at the top. And now the outline went away, but we'll bring that back later on. And I'm going to press find my color. And after I clicked, I have these dots, so if I change the color, I can get that white kind of going inside the star. Now that I've done that, I want to go to Edit, Paste in Front, or Paste in front, and now my original star comes back. But what I have to do now is get rid of the fill so that my old fill goes through it. So what I technically have here is two stars, one that's just the outline and one that's the gradient mesh one. And you're going to want to do that effect for both images. And ideally get most of the stars looking like that if that's what you chose to add your gradient to. We could also do it to the snowbank to make it look like the light's kind of reflecting on it. So the light would be hitting the snow and then getting darker toward the bottom, if I was imagining it. So what I'm going to do is select my snowbank, grab my gradient mesh tool, and I got to decide, do you want that line or not? And I'm going to copy it just in case, so Control C. And I click here. I'm going to add in my darker layer, my darker effect. That's a little bit too much, so let's try if we have like a light gray. And let's try moving it a little bit. So I'm going to click up at the top, and I want to put the white back up at the top. So now I'm just clicking to add some more white in, because whatever color you click is what gets put in. So now I'm getting some more reflections. And let's zoom out, and let's see how it looks like if I lock that layer. So it looks like a little snowy. I actually don't like that too much, so I'm going to press Control Z until I get back to what I had before. And I'm going to try it again, just to see if I can get something better. So maybe let's try if we put some blue in it, because snow I think might have a little bit of blue effect. And now, so we'll start with like a light blue, and we can use the gradient mesh tool to add in a lot of white to that. So if we add it in, now let's try seeing what that looks like locked. Now that looks a little bit better. I like that effect that we have going. I'm going to paste back, because I had copied originally the snowbank. I'm going to press Control V, and it pastes up here. I just got to move it back into place. And now I got to decide, do I want, first I got to get rid of the fill. Now do I want this blue line or not? And I can use once it's highlighted, I can use the move tool to make sure that it lines up with the actual shape. And I think it looks better with that blue outline there, so I'm going to keep it there. Go ahead, add gradients to anything else that you want to have gradients on to try and get the lighting to look a little bit more consistent. So you generally want lighter at the top, closer to the stars, and then darker toward the bottom. So I'm going to continue working for the penguin a little bit and get his stomach to be a gradient fill. And I want to keep my outlines so that I don't lose that effect. And just add in some extra color to it. So if we click in, we can get some white going up there. And then just paste on my stomach again, clearing the fill so that all I have is this outline to put back into place. And once you got it, go ahead, save your work again, and you're ready to go on to the next video. So you can add the other stars, you can mess with the snowflakes, however you want to do it. In the next video, we're going to look at different effects and different special effects you can do, such as shadows and glows to make your image have some more depth. So go ahead, save your work once you're done by pressing Control S or clicking File, Save, and you're ready to go on to the next video. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, in this video we're going to be looking at how to use the stylize effects to do glows and shadows inside of our Illustrator drawing. So go ahead and get your Illustrator file opened up. I'm going to go View, Zoom to Fit, so that way, Fit in Window, or Control 0, so that way you guys can see it pretty easily. And what I want to do is I'm going to add some glows to the stars to make them glow a little bit. and then explore adding some shadows maybe to different parts of the penguin or different parts of the image and see what effects I can get. So what I want to do first is highlight my layers, make sure everything's locked except the stars layer. I'm going to go ahead and select all the stars at once, and this might slow down the computer, but I'm just going to go to Effects, Stylize, I'll move it over so you can see it, Effect, Stylize, Outer Glow. And let's go ahead, and I want them, it says Mode Screen, so let's see what happens if I just put OK. And you get this little glow around the image. So see how if we zoom, let's just switch back and forth so you can see what happened. Before it looked like this, and now, oops, edit. Yeah, so now it has a little bit of glow. It's really hard to see that, so I'm going to do it a little bit more dramatically. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to highlight this star in particular so you can see what it does. We go Effect, Stylize, and I'm clicking Outer Glow again. And I'm going to just make the size 66 points instead. And I say Preview. And now if you do Preview, it's going to slow down the computer a little bit because it's going to show it. So you see how we have this big glow? So let's drop that down to only like 24. Not even. Let's go like 10. But let's change the color to be like a yellowish glow. And now if we say OK, see how we have like that little bit whiter effect. You can also look at some of the different blending options to get exactly what you want. So maybe I want mine to lighten or hue. And just see what happens as you explore the different options. I'm not seeing too much of a change, so I'm going to leave it at multiply. I like having this lighter glow though to make the star kind of bounce out a little bit. So that might be a little bit too big though. So if I grab all my stars by clicking on this dot right here, I can go to Effects, Stylize, Outer Glow, and I'm going to say Apply New Effect, so it's going to apply on top of the old effect. I'm just going to make it bigger and change that color. Let's try just going straight white and see what we get. And I say OK, and now if you look at my stars, they should have a bigger glow around them, so you can see them kind of glowing. This one more because I have doubled up on the layer. So think about how you want your image to glow and how you want what effects you want to have. You can lower the opacity if you want, so if you don't want to be as dramatic as that, when you go to the outer glow effect, I'm saying apply new effect. Instead of opacity being 75%, we can drop it to like 19, and it'll have a more mild impact on our image. So now if we say OK, when they all start glowing, it's just a lot more subtle. So see how it was just a very subtle glow between it. So watch it pop back on. It's just not as much as it used to be. And that's kind of, you want to be subtle when possible. And now we're going to look at some places we can add shadows. So I'm going to try and grab, I'm going to unlock actually my whole penguin just to do this as an experiment to give it a little bit of a 3D effect. So I grab my whole penguin and I'm just going to hold the Shift button and click on all those dots to highlight everything in the penguin except the details. Then we go to Effects, Stylize, Drop Shadow. Now this one, we're just going to say Preview. And it's going to take a second to load it. But now see how the penguin has a 3D effect where it looks like it's popping out, whereas before it was flat. See if we can see the flat part. So let's cancel this. So that's what it looked like before. Now we go Effect, Stylize, Shadow, Drop Shadow. If I click OK, this is what it looks like once that shadow gets added to the image. So let's try selecting that image one more time before I do it. So I'm holding Shift while I click on all the dots. And I go to Effect, Stylize, Drop Shadow. I'm just going to leave these the way it is and say OK. And now if you look at it, he has kind of like a popping out 3D effect. So go ahead, add on some drop shadows, add on some glows wherever you want. If you want to get the moon too, that'd be a good place to have it glowing. And get it looking the way you want. And then we're going to continue on how to make the snowflakes 3D in the next video. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, in this video we're going to look at the final skill that we're going to be using to improve and stylize our illustration, and this is going to be using the 3D effects to make our moon 3D. Originally I did the effect on the snowflake, but it took about 5 minutes for my computer to process it, and I don't want to slow you guys that far down. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out my different effects. Alright, so I got my image ready to work with. And one thing you want to do is, because the 3D effects use a lot of memory and processor from the computer, we want to save our work right away. So make sure that the save is kind of a lighter gray, saying that you just saved your work. If you want to save an extra copy, that's fine too. Because what happens is, a lot of times you'll try to apply the 3D effect and it'll crash the computer. So I'm going to do it with the moon, because when I did it with the snowflakes, it was a little bit too much for the computer to handle. So I unlock the moon layer. I'm going to click on here to get it highlighted. And I'm going to go to Effects, 3D. Let's go so you can see it. Effects, 3D, Extrude and Bevel. And then this lets you kind of decide how you want it to look. And you can, how deep should it go? Should it go like huge or not that big? So I'll leave it about where it was before at 50. There's some other effects that you can look through, like different types of shading, different styles. And let's go ahead and click OK. And you give it a minute, and see how it created my moon to be kind of 3D and glossy. Maybe you don't like that. I'm going to press Control Z to undo. I'm going to go Effect 3D, Extrude and Bevel, and let's try something different. So maybe I want it to face out this way. And now I have this 3D effect. And now maybe I want to change the color of this stroke. So instead of a dark blue, maybe I want my moon stroke. So I'll double click on that outline color and maybe get it white. And it didn't change anything. Oh, there it goes. So we got the white. Don't like that too much, maybe like a yellowish color. You say OK. You got to give it a minute while it processes, and I like that effect a little bit better. So now you have kind of that 3D effect going with the moon. So that's some ways you can add some 3D to your image. Be careful as you use it though. There are other 3D styles, so I'm going to go ahead and show you on one of the stars. Just as an example of some of the other effects you can get with 3D. So if you go to the revolve, imagine it spins around itself. So just spinning in like a 360-degree angle, you'll get almost like you spun the star around a table. And then see what effect we get. And like I said before, the reason why we save all of our work very frequently before we go into 3D effects is because this might take a while. So we can try to stop it. And it says there's not enough memory available to process the appearance of an object. So my computer can't handle it, which is fine, it happens. But you should be able to get the moon at least. I'm going to go ahead and put my stroke back up. And then hopefully clear this out so it stops trying to do that. So that's why we save it as frequently as we can when we're working with 3D. So if you get the 3D moon in there, that's fine with me, just to see that we have some exploration with those 3D effects. However you want to do it. If you want to try and get the ground to pop out in the snowbank, certain shapes work quicker than others, and I think the best 3D one that our computers can handle is that extrude and bevel. And we can say I want it to look like it's coming off the, let's have it look like it's coming off like a downhill slant. Let's see what we get with this. I say OK. And I don't know how this is going to work with that gradient effect, so it's going to figure out how to make it look a little bit better. So it kind of looks like he's standing on a snowbank now, but I'm not huge on the effects. Maybe if I make it bigger. And it's going to take a minute while it processes everything. So anything in 3D is going to go really slow. Now if I look at my image, by what fits on the screen, he's there, but he's not in the right spot. So I'd have to move it up again so they line up. So he's standing on the snowbank, and now it's going to process again. So we do this last because it has the highest chance of crashing our computer, and also because it takes a long time to let it process everything. So even now I still want to go up a tiny bit more. But now I got my penguin on this 3D snowbank. So the stars, it didn't have enough memory to do the revolve, but the bevel is a little bit more processor friendly. So now I got my penguin standing on the snowbank, and I am ready to go ahead and post this up in my next video. I'm going to post it up to WordPress, and then I can get started on my choice illustration where I pick which picture I want to use and go through this process on my own for the picture of my choice. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, in this final video I'm just going to walk through the steps one more time on how to post this image to WordPress. And the way we do that is we make sure it's saved as an AI file. We're going to export it as a JPEG and then post the JPEG to our WordPress and include the caption, what's one thing you're proud of in your project, one thing you want to improve, and what's one thing you want to improve when you do your choice illustration. Let's get those 2 questions ready to go. and we'll make sure we get that posted up in our WordPress. So let's go ahead and walk through that process. So I have my file. First I want to make sure I save it as an Illustrator file. So we go File, Save As, or not Save As, you can just do Save because we've been working in Illustrator the whole time. And you'll see the .ai ending at the top. Now we go File, so let's let that process for a second. And then once it's ready, we'll go File to Export, and we need to export it as a JPEG. So File, Export, and we call it a JPG. And this one's C8 illustration process 11. It's going to go through the same process we did in C7. We're going to go into our WordPress and make a new post. So it's getting ready. It's processing because now it's got all that 3D effects, so it takes a little bit longer to save. I'm going to go over to my internet browser and go to WordPress.com. So I'm at WordPress.com, not .org, and I go to log in with my account. And I'm going to, once I'm in, I go to the My Blog page. I go to my posts, which I should, because I already posted C7, have that post options there. And now I can go Add New. This one is going to be C8, my first illustration. And then we're going to go ahead and click Add Media, go to Upload Files, select Files, and we're going to look for that image that we just saved. Mine's in the desktop. And then make sure when you saved it, sorry I didn't go over this again, that you save it to the same folder, so your project folder that you've been working in, which should have your name somewhere in it, so that we can find your stuff easily. So I go to C8 illustration process, and I add this file in. And if you notice, it's got, this is how the JPEG came out. Because I did the 3D effects, it tried to include the whole shapes. We can work on copying it later on when we go into our Photoshop unit. I'm going to go ahead and make this large so it comes out nice and big. And I insert it into my post. And here is my first illustration with my penguin drawing. I'm going to go down to the line underneath, and I'm going to answer those questions. So one thing, let's go back to my questions and figure out what they were. What's one thing you're proud of in your project? One thing you want to improve on. So one thing I am proud of is ... And one thing I'm proud of is I like how the 3D effect came out on the snowbank, because I wasn't planning on doing that. It just kind of worked out. And it looks, I like the 3D with that gradient effect to make it look like snow, kind of with a cloudy effect feel to it. And then one thing that was challenging was, and so it was hard kind of for me to draw some of the different shapes, but also what was really challenging was when I was doing the 3D effects, my computer kept freezing. So this is a time to kind of reflect on that. And then once you have your reflection in there, make sure you can see everything the way you want. Go ahead, click Publish. And then if you like the way it came out, you're good to move on to the next section on C9. Otherwise, go ahead and go to Edit Post and try to change it up. And if I click on it, I get my full image right here. Keep in mind that when I am going to be viewing it, when I would be using this image, I would be zooming it in, so just about, maybe a little bit less than that. This much is visible. So the snowbank wouldn't have all those edges. It would be like the snow at the bottom, the snowflakes. But that would be the illustration part that I would be using and exporting in the future once we get those tools with cropping. But for now, we want to keep all of our illustration images pure, and we'll work on those additional tools and strategies later on once we have some more practice with Illustrator and Adobe products. So go ahead and get this posted to WordPress. Don't forget the caption and publish that up, and then you're ready to begin. You can do this process one more time for an image that you choose, and we'll go through that overview again and let you get to work on it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now that we've finished the penguin illustration, you're going to get to go through the entire illustration process one more time with an image that you choose. This is the Choice Illustration project. There's going to be a lot less guidance, but it's basically following the same steps as the last activity, but to create your own illustration. So let's look at a couple examples real quick. So here we have one example. You can see the outlines and it's colored in, and they use some different stroke effects and some different lighting and gradient effects as well to create this picture. Here's another one. This one's not as developed. Some of the shapes aren't complete and you have some white gaps, and you can see the kind of original image showing through. And then here's one that's a little bit in the middle where the shapes are really well developed, but all the colors are solid, so there's no use of gradients. So there's a lot of room to kind of go for some really creative and dynamic images. You want to make sure that you're setting up your file well, using different layers and making sure that you're stacking them in the correct order and using the appropriate tools to create your shapes. That when you create your shapes, they're complete and accurate, which means that you're trying to get, here you can see like some of it gets a little bit jagged. How can you make it as smooth as possible? How can you avoid having shapes where it doesn't fill in all the way? And this one they actually did a really good job with most of the shapes, where you can see like the curves are pretty smooth for the most part. And then how can you use colors, gradients, and effects to create a dynamic image? So here he has colors, but it's not as dynamic as this one where there's kind of like shading, and you can see there's a light source over here, and it gets darker on the other side. So for this picture, for this project, you're going to pick an image or create your own if you want to draw it by hand and get it onto your computer, and then go through the illustration process. We'll walk you through the steps on picking your images or getting in your images if they're already saved to your computer to make this happen in the next video. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, in this video we're going to walk you through the steps to setting up your choice illustration and kind of overview the different steps that you need to make sure you follow to make sure that you do this project correctly. I'm not going to go into as much detail as I did in the Penguin project, but we're going to show you how to get your file into Illustrator, save your file, and then we'll review a little bit about how to create your layers, make your outlines, fill in your colors, and then add gradients and effects. So we're going to go ahead and get started. You need to go to the flag at the bottom of your screen and open up your programs to try and find Adobe Illustrator, or you can type in ILLUS. And then you're going to want to get your file either from Google Images, or if you created your own file or your own image that you want to turn digital, go ahead and get a picture of that and have it saved to your computer. So I'm going to walk through how to do that from Google Images right about now. So for the purpose of this project, you want to be working with coloring book pages or something that's just going to be black and white outlines. You don't want a full grayscale image, because that's going to be harder to draw. So like these won't really work. We want to kind of stick more with the black and white outlines. So if we go to an example like here, there's the koala. I'll go ahead and click on it. To save it to my computer, you can right click and say Save Image As. You save it to your folder, so go to the desktop, make sure you're using that same folder we've been using for everything else, and then you can just call it my koala, or whatever your image is called. It doesn't matter what image type it saves as. It could be a GIF, a JPEG, a PNG. All the different files have the same process for getting them into Illustrator. So once you have that saved, switch over to Adobe Illustrator. We're going to go ahead and make a new document. I'm going to make a new web document. And the title for this one is C9 Choice Illustration, and then your name. And once you do that, go ahead and click OK, and it should pop up a window that looks something like this. You'll see your file name right up here. And now what we want to do is real quick make sure that our windows are all set the same. So I'm going to go Window to Workspace to Basic, and then I just click on that and it resets everything. So it's looking pretty clean. And now I want to go File, Place. And if you go File to Place, it'll let you bring in that file we saved from Google Images, or if you saved it to your folder, you should see your folder, and it places it into the screen. If I go ahead and zoom out using Control minus, I see that my koala is not fitting inside my green area. So I'm going to take the black arrow tool, I'm going to click on it, and I'll start dragging from here. When I'm dragging, I'm going to hold the Shift key to keep it from getting stretched out. If you're not holding the Shift key, it can get like really skinny or really wide. And we want to hold the Shift key so that it keeps it proportional. So go ahead and set that up. And then once you have that, you can press Control 0 to zoom back in. So Control plus is to zoom in, Control minus is to zoom out, Control 0 resets it. And then I can just click out and my picture's ready to go. So next step is I want to make sure I save my file as a new file. So I go File, Save As. The name's already there. Make sure it goes into your desktop, your period folder. Click Save. And then the next step, and I just accept the settings as they pop up. The next step is going to be make sure that our colors are set up. So I want to have my colors here, but I want to pick no fill, and I pick black outlines. Make sure the layers window is available. And we have layer 1 right now. I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. Say template image. And now this is where you're going to have to think, starting from the back of your image and working forward, what do you want your image to look like? If it helps, you can also double click on this layer and say dim images to 50%. And that's going to make my koala a little bit grayer. So go ahead and get to this point, then pause. Once you do that, unpause the video, and we'll show you how to make the layers. So I'm going to lock up my template image, and then I want to imagine I'm drawing this starting from the back, going to the front. So I might not want this backspace to stay white, so I'm going to make a new layer and call it background color. You always want to start with that. Remember, that was just a big square, so we could change the background color. There's no land or anything else here, so now I want to think, what's at the back of my picture? So we kind of have this like whole body background outline. So I'm going to make a new layer and say his body is at the back of the picture. It's like the whole background. And now maybe I'm going to stop the body and do the head separately. But I know that there's nothing behind the head, so I can go ahead and add that on. So go ahead and add on the head. And now I'll think what's on top of the head is like the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And also this leaf. So all those layers have to be above the head layer. We also have above the leaf, we have a hand layer. So you just want to keep adding in layers until you have all your pieces set up. You can always reorder them if you change your mind. But you want to make sure you get all your layers set up and that you lock them up. I'm going to go ahead and just continue through with how to do the outline. So get your layer set up. Then you just go onto the outline. So I'll use the pen tool and say I wanted to, you just go bottom by bottom, or layer by layer, starting at the bottom. And even before we use the pen tool, we go to the background image and we just draw one big square so that later on we're able to change the color if we want to. So I'm going to leave that set to clear, lock that up, and now I can start my layers. Just for time's sake, I'll show you guys the head layer. So we walk through there, I grab my pen tool, and I'm just going to outline the head layer. I'm going a little quick. I'm just doing my solid shape outlines. So go ahead, it's just like before. The key thing though is when we finish the shape, we need to make sure we actually connect everything in one single line. So when you're getting close to done, you want to make sure that your final piece, you get that circle to show up, so that it loops the whole head into a single shape. I went a little bit quick through mine, so this whole outline won't receive full credit. But later on, I could also go in and add on the details to get those last few pieces in there. So because one of my later layers would be details if I was going that far with this project. So I have that set up. You want to do that for all your layers, and then you go through and you come back layer by layer and you color them in. So I can zoom out, I can click here to highlight my background color square, and just start filling it with different colors. So now I have orange here, and now I didn't do the body, so you would want all those pieces and say we want his head to be blue. I gotta highlight it first, and now I can just make his head blue. And then if you keep working through, eventually you'd have all the details showing up. Once you have the details, you do want to add in some color effects. So imagine if the light was here, maybe you want to have a gradient where it starts whiter over here and gets darker over there. So I could do my gradient mesh tool, click here, and add in some lighter blue using the colors palette. And now I'm starting to get, oh, see if we can get anything to change. Get some little lighting effects and shades. So that's just kind of an overview. I'm not going to redo the whole thing for you. Hopefully you were able to get your file set up, do the layers, outline each of the layers, then color them in. So once you bring in your image file, you're going to set up the layers. You work step by step to outline all your layers, and then you can add on different stroke effects, add in your colors, and then add in shadings and gradients to make it more stronger effects, and using different like 3D effects as well. So go ahead, make sure you do your complete illustration, and then that you save it up and post it to your WordPress. And we'll go through in the next video on how to do that.